Welcome back, true believers and spectacular Spidey fans, to another Spider-Man PS4 related video. And before I even begin this video, I just want to say heads up for spoilers for Spider-Man Homecoming. This video will be discussing what happens in Spider-Man Homecoming, specifically talking about Spidey's gadgets and various technological aspects that are embedded within the suit in Spider-Man Homecoming. But let's face it, if you did see the trailers for the movie, then you most likely did see the majority, or at least a big amount of the movie. But really, in regards to the suit, we saw a lot of cool things in the trailers, but if you did see the movie, you know that there is much more than there meets the eye to the suit in regards to what Peter actually does with the suit and what the suit actually comes with in the movie. And a little spoiler right here, I won't bring up the built-in heater that the suit does come with within this list, because that was just more like a comedic purpose within the movie, and relating that specific feature of the suit within Spider-Man PS4, which is a game, I don't think that they would really focus on a feature like that to be implemented within the video game suit. But who knows? You never know. That would be really cool, but I just think that for me personally, I won't put it on the list. So basically, to break down why I'm making this video is that not only am I going to get to my Homecoming review, but I have to see it again. I do want to see it a second time before I actually do my full-on review for the movie, so you can expect that later on. For this, though, you can get my first impressions of the movie, and also, you can learn some really interesting fun facts about Spider-Man PS4 and Spider-Man Homecoming. Specifically, which the clip that you will see soon, is that Brian Intihar and Insomniac Games were making Spider-Man PS4 in October of 2014, where Brian Intihar was named the creative director for Spider-Man PS4, and then in January of 2015, that's when the game officially began its development, which means they did not know that Spider-Man would be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe when they started the game, as you can see in this clip right here.
Wanted to use the shape of the eyes to kind of communicate how he's feeling, give him some expression. So, you know, that's really our animators, our riggers, our character artists really gave us that flexibility to be able to manipulate his eyes to have more expressive character.
And it seems to work. I mean, you look at the Deadpool movie, and that's one of the things that people praise it for.
The thing is, I saw it in Civil War, right? And I was like, we're going to do this already. We were going to do it already. But it just shows we're on the same page, which to me says we're doing something right.
Yeah.
So as you heard Brian say there, he said that Insomniac and him, the whole team of Insomniac, were implementing the moving mechanical eye lenses for the Spider-Man costume before Spider-Man was even introduced in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They had no idea that he was going to join the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or rather, they didn't know that the next upcoming Spider-Man movie would implement the moving eye lenses. They had no idea they were going to do that, because they were the first ones to think of it, just like the web tripwire that we also saw in the demo. That's the same exact thing. They thought of that same gadget before Spider-Man Homecoming was even going to have a movie. Before they even knew about a Spider-Man Homecoming movie, they wanted to implement that same type of gadget that we see in Spider-Man Homecoming, where he sticks the guy to the wall with that automatic gadget, and what we see a lot in the movie where he's saving the ferry. In that whole scene where he's saving the ferry from being destroyed, he uses a lot of the web grenades in that scene, and just like what we see in the game, he uses it to slam the guy with one wall and slam two inner demons into each other. And again, same thing with how they're using every single aspect of Spider-Man and his ingenious, awesome intellect in the comics, and how they're implementing with that, with Peter Parker being a 23-year-old scientist in the game who just graduated college. He is pretty darn smart. And in the comics, sometimes, if you have a older Peter, an adult Peter, he is pretty darn smart. Not Tony Stark level smart or Reed Richards smart, but he is still one of the most intelligent minds of the Marvel Universe in the comics and also in the movies. And mainly since he can build his own web shooters, and since he's a scientist, maybe that can allow himself to upgrade his web shooters, since in Homecoming, he uses school materials and the abilities that he has as Peter Parker to create his own web fluid, and he uses the class in his science class, all the materials that they have there in his chemistry class pretty much, to make his web fluid in the class, and I find that awesome. But now that we have this really older, experienced Peter, who knows what type of other abilities and equipment and technological aspects that he has at his disposal when getting all these materials to make more improvements and upgrades with his spider equipment that he uses as Spider-Man. Insomniac were making this game before Homecoming was even announced, so they have the range to do anything that we saw in Spider-Man Homecoming and more. So mainly, this whole list is going to showcase what we saw in Spider-Man Homecoming and how I think Insomniac can implement those features and influence them within Spider-Man PS4. And keep in mind, they probably already thought of this before the movie came out. So what we saw with the web wings, what we saw with the parachute embedded in the costume, which I thought was really kind of odd. But all that who knows, could possibly be in the game. We just have to wait and see. But I'm going to break this list down from the least interesting stuff to the most interesting stuff. Doesn't mean that I find it boring, it just means that it's really exciting, but not as exciting as the stuff that I'm going to bring up near the end of the list. So first off, the number one thing that I think Spider-Man Homecoming could influence within Spider-Man PS4 is actually what we saw with the AI in the movie. We had Karen in the AI of the suit. And also, please go check out the one and only Spidey Bugle's video on this. I think it is his most popular video about him discussing what the inside of the mask of Spider-Man's mask will actually look like. So I don't want to really talk about this one as much because his video was so amazing. You should definitely watch it. But for me, just to briefly talk about it, Spider-Man's suit in Spider-Man Homecoming did have an AI, Jennifer Connelly, aka Karen, in the movie. And we have basically what Iron Man has with Jarvis, and whose Jarvis is now Vision in the MCU. But basically, Iron Man has a buddy that he can talk to and help him out when he's Iron Man, basically being what Ned was saying in the movie, be the guy in the chair. Jarvis was pretty much Iron Man's guy in the chair, but he was the guy in the suit because he was of AI and artificial intelligence. Same thing with Karen, that's the exact same thing. Since this Spider-Man suit in Spider-Man PS4 was not built by Tony Stark, it was confirmed on Insomniac Games' Twitter page that Peter built the suit that way. He made the logo white for a reason, and he made his web shooters all by himself, and he made the suit all by himself. He didn't have any help from anybody else. It was all Peter. And since Peter is much smarter in this game compared to how Tom Holland was in Spider-Man Homecoming, since Tom Holland is a 15-year-old, or as Peter Parker, he's a 15-year-old in the movie, and in this we have a 23-year-old just out of college student who is also Spider-Man. So this version of Spider-Man in Spider-Man PS4 is much more intelligent than Peter Parker in Spider-Man Homecoming. That doesn't mean that Peter wasn't dumb or smart or anything in Spider-Man Homecoming. He was very much intelligent in the movie, but he will not be as intelligent as this Peter will be. And mainly to kind of input on what they could use with the AI, if they do happen to have an AI in the suit in the game, they could say like, oh, heads up, crime going downtown. Oh, Mr. Negative robbing banks in Chinatown. Hobgoblin endangering people in Times Square. You know, the AI, if there was an AI in the suit, can alert Peter about threats going on in the city, just like what a feature does in a certain gadget that I'm going to bring up eventually, that can warn him about threats in the city, but mainly with an AI embedded in the suit. I think that'd be really high tech for Peter, but we'll just wait and see. Second on my list is the auto suit up, or what the automatic form of him getting inside the spider suit that we saw in the movie and also in the trailers, where he automatically puts on the suit, but it's all baggy, it doesn't fit him, and then he presses the logo on the suit and it sticks to him. You know, it's kind of like a vacuum seal bag where it just sucks up the air around him, and it tight fits the Spider-Man, and it makes it easier to get in the suit, I guess. But my problem that I have with that whole scene is that why wasn't he just wearing the suit underneath his regular clothes? We see later in the movie where Ned and Peter are going to Liz's house for the party, he has his suit on. Great. Why didn't he do that in the same thing with the alleyway scene? I get it because they want to show off a feature of the suit, but I just kind of found that really strange that he took that one whole long scene where I get it's awkward because Peter's awkward and it made it funny, just kind of like in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, but I don't know, that scene was just kind of really odd to me. Mainly regarding that whole auto suit up feature where he can stick the suit to his body. If they have that feature like that in Spider-Man, maybe if he presses the white logo on the spider, he can take off the suit and then he can become Peter Parker. Or kind of similarly, to reference a really awesome show, Spider-Man Unlimited, where Peter had this watch that was filled with nanites and nanobots that formed the Spider-Man suit that he was wearing in the show. So maybe if this is a really high-tech Peter Parker, who is a very smart one at that, I don't know if we're going to go into nanites, but I think it'd be really interesting to see something like that where you can, hopefully, we can free roam as Peter Parker in the New York City streets anytime we want to. That's a dream that we all have been having in a fully next-generation Spider-Man game, and I'm pretty sure that since Insomniac Games did confirm Peter Parker gameplay, I really hope that there's free roaming Peter Parker gameplay, but we'll wait and see. But mainly, if there's a situation where you're walking down the city streets, you hear cop cars, and you see them chasing after some street thugs robbing some banks and stuff, maybe you can run into an alleyway like the amazing game unboxing reviews News mentioned in his video. That's one of his features that he really wants in the game, is his alleyway feature, where you see danger happening, you run into an alleyway, you press a button, you go from Peter Parker, you jump out of frame, and you change to Spider-Man, and then you jump back into frame swinging, and that would be incredible. And hopefully that feature in Spider-Man Homecoming, or just a feature like that, can be implemented within the main game. Next up is the parachute. Now this was the one that I understand, because Tony Stark is a genius and he just adds any failsafe he possibly can, but a parachute within the suit seems strange to me, and I think it's reasonable, hopefully reasonable, to say that there will not be a parachute in the Spider-Man PS4 suit. I really hope not. I mean, it's a cool feature, and you can see in the Spider-Man Homecoming suit in the back logo it's sticking out for a reason, and it's because it's holding an entire parachute in it. But with Spider-Man PS4, we also see that the logo sticks out, but I don't think a parachute's hanging in there. I think it's just a really cool architecture structure piece that is actually on the suit, that's incorporated within the main suit textures, and I don't think that there would be a parachute in the game. If you are falling from a huge height and you have no more web fluid, a parachute would come in handy, but still, I personally don't want to be a parachute within this Spider-Man PS4 suit, but that's just me. But you guys might really want one, but for me personally, I would not like to see one. Or mainly, if there is one, hopefully there can be an option to use it. At least give this an option for all these features, because that'd be great. Next up is the spider signal, the spider light that we see in the end of the Civil War post-credit scene, and also kind of briefly in Spider-Man Homecoming. In the comics, he uses the spider signal as, funny enough, a way to make the enemies be afraid, that he goes and fights, and to kind of surprise them and make them be afraid of Spider-Man in the nighttime doing heroic things. And then the spider light's supposed to be like a signal, like, hey guys, I'm Spider-Man, you guys are going to get your butts whooped. Since we saw it in Spider-Man Homecoming, it was just kind of a cool little, icon feature. Not really anything too big, but just kind of a really cool incorporation of the old school comics in the game. If they have the spider signal in the game, hopefully we can use that to stun enemies or surprise enemies during stealth and get the drop on them, and then make ourselves aware and maybe use it as a distraction during stealth sequences, since we already saw with the web trip mine. Maybe they can do the same thing if they have the spider light in the game. Maybe use it as a stealth incorporation for gameplay. I think that'd be really cool, and see what other types of aspects they can use with the spider signal if it is in the game. Next up is Droney, or the spider drone that we saw in the trailers and the movie, is the Reconnaissance flying spider logo drone that we see Spider-Man use during the Washington Monument scene, and during one scene which I'll mention eventually. It's just really cool because it's kind of like Spider Tracers 2.0, where that is not a spider tracer, that is a actual spider drone. But we do see spider tracers in the movie, but with the spider drone, you can use it to basically fly around and view your area and survey it in a way that you can use it to your strategic advantage, which would be incorporated perfectly within stealth aspects in the game. We already see that in Batman Arkham Knight, where you can use your remote control Batarang during the stealth sections to get a good glimpse of what the area is. Same thing with Detective Vision, but mainly if you use your remote control Batarang, you can fly around the area that you're stealthing around. You're sneaking around trying to take out all the enemies, and you can use your remote control Batarang to fly around the area, make sure how many enemies there are, and make sure that you can point out in a strategic way how to take them down. And I think the spider drone would do just that. And kind of to mention what I already just said, is spider tracers, this is what I really want in Spider-Man PS4. This is actually a feature that I'm not demanding, but I'm pretty much begging to be in the game. This is how it would work. You have spider tracers in the game, right? We have seen spider tracers in The Amazing Spider-Man 1, 2, and also in a cutscene in Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro. But mainly we haven't seen them anywhere else. I really hope if Spider-Man has a web trip mine and different web variations in the game, spider tracers would be perfect for this reason alone. Say that you're going around free roaming New York City, there's a side mission going on, that there is a car robbery in progress and you have to stop it. But it turns out that there's a bigger threat downtown with Mr. Negative and the Inner Demons going at the New York Stock Exchange. Say you go to the car robbery, you plant a spider tracer on that car, and then you go take out Mr. Negative and the Inner Demons at the New York Stock Exchange, and then you go back to free roaming, and then you can check on the status of where your spider tracer is and hunt it down, and hunt the source down and the signal down, and go and take out the thugs later on. I think that would be really, really cool if they implemented a feature like that in the game. That would give a lot of player freedom and abilities, just like we see in Horizon Zero Dawn, where there's so much gameplay variety, so many different side quests and different missions you can do in the game to make yourself never bored. So if you were to do a cool thing like add spider tracers on an enemy and then go back to them later or track them down, I think that would be awesome. And that is one thing I really want to be in the game. Now, to kind of get into the more techie stuff, the tech stuff that we see in the movie, is the holographic interface, where Ned is holding the web shooter, and also near the end of Civil War, but mainly where this one scene where Ned is holding the web shooter, and he sees this holographic 3D map pop up on screen. That makes it really dynamic, and we also see that in Batman Arkham Knight, where he has the holographic projection screen in his gauntlets. But what we see with Spider-Man's suit, there's not really anything that we can really have in the suit that can do that, unless it's the inside of his mask that is showing him features like that. But I think that if there was a really high-tech 3D hologram projection system that was showing him threats and things going on in the city, I think that might be inside of wherever he is working as a scientist, maybe Horizon Labs or Oscorp. But I don't think it would be in the suit, but who knows? They can do anything that they choose to, and they totally will surprise us with whatever they want to do down the line. Next up, now kind of going more into spoiler territory, is Reconnaissance mode. We see that in the area where he is stalking Herman Schultz and the Shockers in the white van, and he tries to hunt them down, and then he uses Reconnaissance mode within his suit to be able to hear what the enemies are saying, just like kind of what Batman Beyond does, where he uses the fingertip sonar frequencies embedded in the suit to get a better hearing of what people are talking about behind closed doors. And if Spider-Man does have a feature like that within the suit, being able to stalk enemies and make sure that if you're doing stealth sections and make sure that you get some inside information on what, if the inner demons are talking about stuff with Mr. Negative, then maybe you can get some insight on what maybe useful information they're talking about. Because that's what I love about the Batman Arkham games, is since Batman uses his cowl to hear whatever is going on in the city, you always hear enemies talking, and no conversation is repeated. You always hear some new dialogue that all the thugs and the henchmen are having with each other about what's going on in the story, about what is happening during the Gotham City destruction and island evacuation with all the pedestrians. They're talking about the villains, they're talking about Batman, they're talking about Justice League members, and the same thing here can happen with Spider-Man. We don't know if there are more Marvel heroes in this game, but still I think it'd be cool if you do hear some thugs talk about the bigger scope of this Marvel universe, or this Spider-Man universe that we have. Maybe other Spider-Man related characters like Black Cat, or maybe Eddie Brock, or Cletus Cassidy, or someone really important within the Spider-Man comic lore that maybe relates to other characters that we already see, like Yuri Watanabe and Miss Martin Lee and stuff like that. So I think that'd be really cool if they added features like that with Reconnaissance mode, if it is in the suit. Next up is Instant Kill mode. We see that once in the movie, and that was hilarious, and obviously Spider-Man doesn't kill in the movie or the game, but still, if they added a feature like that where there is, what we also hear is enhanced combat mode, where there is an enhanced feature of combat, and when Spider-Man takes off the training wheels program in the suit, there are more options to do within the suit and how he can protect himself and fight other people in his day-to-day basis as Spider-Man, and being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in the city. And mainly if we were to have a hardcore combat mode in the game, because we already see that you can build up combos and you have a very vast combat set in the game, I think it would be really interesting to see what other types of frequencies and features that are implemented within the suit that you can use to take out enemies with your acrobatic way of fighting and just the technology that you have at your disposal. Which brings me to the next feature of the suit, which is actually interrogation mode. We see that in that awesome scene, which might be one of my favorite scenes in the movie, where Spider-Man is interrogating Donald Glover, aka Aaron Davis, in the movie. And it was great because of how Peter Parker in the movie does sound a little bit like a girl, because Tom Holland is younger and he's acting as a of-age person, because Tobey Maguire in the Spider-Man movies was way too old to look like a teenager. Tom Holland fits that perfectly, and obviously if you're a sophomore, you are going through some changes, and his voice doesn't sound as hardcore as Tobey's did when he was a Spider-Man. But mainly in interrogation mode would be kind of cool to see in Spider-Man PS4 if you are going after maybe Mr. Negative, or interrogating some thugs to get some whereabouts on where Mr. Negative is, or to hunt down who the head of the Inner Demons is, because we saw in the demo Peter was trying to find out who the leader of the Inner Demons was. So maybe that mission is another mission where you are trying to lead up to that main mission in the demo, and then beforehand maybe you were trying to figure out who this head of the Inner Demons was, and maybe you had to shake some thugs and find out some information. You had to get hardcore, and if they did have interrogation mode where you have a deeper voice or just kind of do stuff that's more intimidating, I think that'd be really cool. But obviously Spider-Man isn't Batman. He would just kind of hang them from webs and kind of mess with them instead of just breaking their bones. But we shall see. But I don't think that Insomniac is going to go that route given what we saw in the demo and how they're talking about their Peter Parker. We're almost done with the main list, guys, so just bear with me. We have two more, and this one is actually the upgraded web shooters that we see in the movie. Tony Stark upgraded the web shooters like crazy in Spider-Man Homecoming. And mainly, I'm going to list off all the varieties of web types that we did see in the movie, and how most likely there will be the same aspect, if not more of those, in Spider-Man PS4. So mainly, the first one, we have standard webbing. We see that in the movie and the game, just shooting out web lines to swing and also just to attach to things. Simple. Next up are web balls. Obviously, that is also something that we saw in the movie and also in previous Spider-Man games, just web shots, shooting webs to, wrap enemies up in or just kind of use to stick things to, so that way they don't fall apart if things are falling apart in the city. Third one is actually multi-webbing. So what we saw in the trailer where he shoots out 2 web lines at once with 1 web shooter, and then it spreads out to get 2 enemies, and then he flips and slams them down onto the ground, and we also see that more in the movie, and I think that'd be a really cool feature to have in Spider-Man PS4. We also had that in Spider-Man 2, where you could web up people multiple times and then rodeo them around the city, or just the city streets, and that was awesome. So mainly, hopefully in Spider-Man PS4, they can have multiple web lines shoot out of the web shooters to wrap up more enemies with and just do really cool combos with if they have that in the game. Or what I'm hoping for, which is a feature that Spider-Man 3 actually had, is dual web swinging, where you could shoot out 2 web lines at once and swing while you were free roaming in the city. I love that feature so much. It's so weird that no other Spider-Man game has that but that one, so hopefully they can bring that feature back in Spider-Man PS4 with multi-webbing. Now, getting into a really hardcore upgrade that we did get from the upgraded web shooters in Homecoming is actually the ricochet webbing. We see that in the scene on the Washington Monument where Spider-Man's trying to save his friends in the elevator, and he uses it to bounce the web off another platform of the elevator and then stick it to the elevator that's falling down, and I think that's really cool. And if we do what we saw in the demo where you actually looks like you can aim, you actually have like the third person shooting of aiming your web projectiles towards enemies and to do structural things with it. So maybe if they have ricochet webbing, that could also be something that they can implement within stealth sections and hopefully also combat. Maybe you can like ricochet a web ball or a web line off of one enemy, sticking it to another enemy and then throwing them around. I think that would be awesome if they were to implement something like that in the combat of the game. The next one that we also saw in the movie a lot of is the web grenade. He used that so much in the whole scene where he was trying to save everyone from the ferry, and also just using it in that part of the trailer. And I think the web grenade, what we already saw, is the web trip mine in the game. What we saw, you can stick it to the ceiling, to the walls, to the ground, and we saw in the D23 footage where you can stick it to 2 inner demons at once and slam them into each other. There are way more features that we can use with that gadget, most likely, and maybe we can upgrade it down the line. Maybe we can have even more features, so that one is just really awesome. And the final web shooting upgrade that we do have in the movie is taser webbing. Taser webbing was used to try and attack a vulture with, and we only saw it once in the movie, sadly, but still, that allows us to think about elemental webbing. In past Spider-Man games, the Neversoft games, we have freeze webbing, fire webbing, we did have electric webbing, I think we have poisonous webbing, and in the movie we have taser webbing that electrifies the web. So maybe if you do have elemental varieties in the webbing in the game, I think that'd be really cool. Maybe you can take down enemies that are harder to take down, like we saw with the heavy inner demon. Maybe there will be more intense enemies down the line of the game that you have to fight that may include elemental varieties that you can use in your webbing. I think that would be really cool if we do have something like that, because that would be really nostalgic for us hardcore Spider-Man fans that have played the PS1 Spider-Man games. And the last thing on my list that was really cool in the movie, but I don't want in Spider-Man PS4, is the web wings. Now, the web wings were used 2 times in the movie, obviously the Washington Monument scene and the ferry scene where he just glides towards the ferry, but mainly I personally do not want web wings to be a feature to traverse around the city with in the game. It may be in there, who knows, but I really don't want it to be, because we already saw it in Spider-Man Homecoming, and swinging is mainly how you should traverse, and we also have parkour in the game. We have parkour, which is the main thing I'm usually going to be traversing with, I already know for a fact, and web swinging and wall running. If they were to also add web wings, that would just take the whole fun out of it, and you would mainly just glide across the city. Play Prototype, and that's what the web wings would be, just gliding forward and slowly going down to the pavement, and then just jumping up again and then starting to swing. I really personally don't want web wings in the game. That would also be really similar to Batman Arkham Knight with the gliding with his cape, so I really don't want them to add that, but that's just my own opinion, and that is actually the end of my list, everybody. If I did forget a certain gadget that Spider-Man does have in the MCU or in Spider-Man Homecoming, please let me know, but mainly, I can't wait to see what other aspects from the movie Insomniac will most likely be using in the game. And again, Insomniac made all this stuff before the movie was out, so who knows what other things they can have, if they even have more ideas than what the movie showed. And once again, hashtag Insomniac we trust. They're going to blow this game out of the water, and they're going to give us so many surprises, it's going to be crazy. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Stay spectacular, Spidey fans. Peace out.